so that you all know my name and kind of a little background of who it is that I am. My name is Laura Marziali, and I'm a database consultant and trainer specializing in the Razor's Edge. My background is in development. I used to work for the Canadian Cancer Society and the Canadian Olympic Association in Toronto. When I left the Olympics, I went to work for Blackbaud as a trainer and consultant, and then as a trainer and consultant, I realized really quickly, as you know, working for Blackbaud, that it's difficult to train people on a sample database. You're going to see that today. We're working on a sample database. And a lot of the information in it doesn't make a whole lot of practical sense. So it's more to show you kind of what the reports and dashboards look like, but we're clearly not looking for them for any for accurate numbers or an accurate reflection of what it is that your nonprofit does. And that's why we kind of became a consultant, because I realized that to really address the problems that people were having, you needed to be working from a real system, the real system, to kind of look at what the issues are, whether they were coding or the way that things were set up. This class in particular is meant to kind of illustrate two things. The first thing is that we really should be reporting and using dashboards much, much more than we are in Razor's Edge. And I don't think that people are. I think that people are querying for a lot of information that they should be using reports and dashboards for. So that's the second part, is to kind of show you how it is that you could be querying less, that in many cases we are querying for things more than we should, and in fact working harder than we need to get certain pieces of information. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat part of the control panel as we go through the session. I'm going to be checking it as we go through. And also, I'm going to start off with some definitions. I'm going to start off with the definition of what is a dashboard versus what is a report. And I'm also going to throw in there the definition of what is a query, just so that we understand what the purposes and uses of each of the three components are in Razor's Edge and what is the differences between them. So I'm going to start with the definition of what is a dashboard. A dashboard in Razor's Edge, in a way, is the same as a report. It's an analytical tool. Both dashboards and reports are meant to show you information that's in your database. But a dashboard's job specifically is to give you a snapshot of the information that is most current and recent, to give you an overview of a big picture of what it is that's going on in key areas within your database. So to me, the best part of a dashboard, and it's why it's my favorite part of Razor's Edge, is that a dashboard, even more than a report, like a report, when you run it, there really isn't much more than you can do other than look at it. Whereas a dashboard is interactive. There are components of a dashboard that are hyperlinked, and they allow you to drill down into constituents' records or into actions or into GIFs, and so that you can work in that record at the same time that you're viewing the information that's there. And that is incredibly valuable, because it makes it kind of a tool that you are that is organic, and that you're working in it the whole time that you're in Razor's Edge. So that's the definition of a dashboard. A report is also an analytical tool. The benefit to a report is where dashboards can be limited by date range. They tend to show you the most current information, such as what's happening this week, this month, this calendar year, or this fiscal year, last calendar year, or last fiscal year. They show you current information. A report doesn't have restrictions on time frames, so you can see reports a much wider variety for any time frame it is that you need. There's a lot more reports than there are dashboards, and they can all be based on queries to kind of help you narrow down and filter to exactly what it is that you want. There are a lot of reports in Razor's Edge that are very good at analyzing and identifying people who you are looking for in the database. So they're really great at helping you find people, like who are donors it is that we've lost, or ones that we've retained and have come back. So it's very good at helping you identify who people are in the system. Now, queries. Queries is probably the most misused part of Razor's Edge. The definition of a query is that a query is a grouping tool. its job is to go from everybody in the database to specifically the group of people that you want, either so that you can report on them or that you can mail to them or email to them. But a query is not a reporting or a mailing tool. Other than finding and identifying them and grouping them together, that is all that they are supposed to be used for. Very rarely do we ever even view a query. A query is used in conjunction with an output part of the program like exports, reports, mail, dashboards, and those are viewing tools. When you take a query, which is what we call dirty data, because it contains everything, unless you build filters into it using criteria to exclude people, it's including absolutely everything. But in reports and mail and dashboards, there are filters in them built in that when you run a query through it, will clean the data and then present it to you in the way that you want to be able to see it. So sometimes when you look at a query and you're like, why are their names showing up like 5 or 10 different times? Or why is it doing this? It's because a query is not meant to be viewed. A query is just meant to group. And then when you run it through a different part of the program that is meant to be viewed, then it shows you that information in the way that you want it to be. So that is kind of the definition. And one of the things that we want to illustrate during this class is how much we can do without ever having to build a query. Now, it's not that you'll never have to build a query either to mail or to report. It's just that we don't have to do it nearly as often. And when we do, the queries as a result are much, much simpler. So for example, if you're using queries with a lot of brackets or merging queries together, then that means that you're not using parts of the mail, for example, that you should be using that do those things for you. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the dashboards part of the program. I'm just going to make this a little smaller so that I can see if anyone has any questions as we go through. Sorry, just see. Okay, and okay, that's better. So I'm going to start off with the dashboard, and I'm going to start off by hitting New here to create a new dashboard. Now, it's really important that when you create a dashboard that you give that dashboard a name, because one of the best features in a dashboard is that they can be shared between people in your offices who have access to Raiser's Edge. But unfortunately, it's going to allow you to name a dashboard New Dashboard over and over and over again. And if then you do want to share this dashboard with someone else, when they go to share it, all they're going to find is a bunch of dashboards called New Dashboards. So you want to make sure that you give it a name and that you are clearly able to identify and find the dashboard that you want. I'm going to start off with dashboards that are related to a capital campaign. Now, if you don't have a capital campaign going on or you don't have one coming up in the near future, then a lot of the dashboard panels that I'm going to build in this one are also useful if you work with any kind of pledges at all, because capital campaigns to me mean a lot of pledges, a lot of like installments and payments and keeping track of what it is that we're going on. But if you use pledges at all, any of these dashboards that we build will probably be useful to you. So I'm going to call this a capital campaign dash. And then I'm going to go over here to a campaign summary. So let me just explain this a little bit. A dashboard is, a lot of people think a dashboard is a report, but a dashboard is not a report. The dashboard itself is the umbrella that is the subject. And in here, you've got panels, and the individual panels are the reports. It's almost like the dashboard is holding together a series of reports all related to the same topic, which is why the capital campaign is the dashboard, but the individual panels will each be looking at the capital campaign from a different perspective. So the first thing that I'm going to do is click on this one here that says campaign summary. You can either double click on it or hit add to move it from the left to the right. Once it's here, you can either double click on it or hit edit to open it. And now, so this is like a report. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to give it a name so that if you print it or export it, it will appear with this name at the top. So it's a capital campaign summary. And I'm going to ask to see this information here as both a table and a graph. Now, campaigns, especially for capital campaign, rarely have years associated with them. They're usually looking at big bucket numbers. There are some exceptions to the rules based on the type of reporting that you need to do, but I would say more often than not, they usually don't have years associated with them. A capital campaign is a perfect example because the date range is defined by when it starts and when it stops. So the campaign itself is the umbrella that includes the date range. So we're going to hit select here next to campaigns to include, and I'm going to choose capital. Again, feel free to ask any questions as we go through in the chat part of the program. So I double clicked on it here, or hit this arrow to move it from the left to the right, and I'm going to hit OK. Also, if you're taking notes, I am recording the session, and I'll send you all a YouTube link of the session once the training is over. So don't feel like you have to take a whole lot of notes because you'll be able to watch it again once the training is over. So I'm going to hit campaign, include capital campaign here, and then I'm going to go here to the gift types to include. So I want to explain a difference between how dashboards deal with this part of the program and how reports deal with this part of the program. Dashboards are a little smarter than reports are in that they automatically default to looking at the money that's been received and not both the money that's been received and the money that has been committed or promised, which is pledges. Now, dashboards, they automatically default to including everything, which means that in reports, you have to be very careful in some of them that you are removing either the pledges or the payments. Otherwise, it's double counting the money that you see there and your numbers are off. Now, dashboards, like I said, automatically default to looking at money, always looking at money that's been received and not money that's been promised. However, whenever you are in a dashboard that contains the word summary, a summary dashboard, those ones, it's okay to choose both to include all the pledges and the pledge payments because the dashboard summary is dividing that information into two separate columns so that it's not double counting. Now, other gift types that you need to look at, always look at to make sure that you do want to count that type of money, is you want to double check to see whether or not you want to include gifting kinds in this total. And also, if you have any money that's being tracked as other, that you either want to include or exclude from there. And I'll hit OK. So I'm going to include it all. And I'm not going to choose a date range because, like I said, the capital campaign itself is going to define the date range. And I want any money that is associated with that capital campaign, regardless of when it comes in. I'm going to always, when it says columns to show, hit select. See what the options are and see which ones I want to include or not include. I'm going to check all because I want to see everything and hit OK. And then OK again. And it comes up here. Now to load the dashboard, I'm going to hit OK again and it's going to load that dashboard panel. Okay. It takes a minute to come up. Now you can see this is what a dashboard panel looks like, and every panel within that dashboard has these three icons that appear up at the top. This first one is just expanding the panel horizontally, so you can kind of see it this way. This one here will collapse it once you've expanded it. This middle button here is probably the one that's used most often, and that is to expand the panel to the full size of your screen. And then again here, you would click on it to minimize it. The first one here, you can do a lot of things. This is where you would go to get to the properties, which is where we were originally, if you want to modify any of the settings, but for that particular panel and not for the dashboard as a whole. It will also allow you to copy the graph and the table and paste them to the clipboard, which is going to allow you to paste them into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, any other program that you want to. I definitely prefer copying the table and the graph to a clipboard and pasting them in Word or Excel because for some strange reason, and that might be fixed in a newer version of the program that I'm on, but when you hit print, it prints it really small and weird in the middle of a page. And especially since most of our donors were older, there's no way in a million years they would ever be able to read them. So when I paste it, I can stretch it out to any size that I want, and it's a lot more legible. in there. So I definitely recommend the copy and the table, although you might want to test it because it could have been something that was fixed. The refresh will allow you to refresh that individual panel as opposed to the dashboard as a whole. The refresh for the dashboard as a whole is right here to refresh. In the newer version of the program, there is an option within the properties here that allow you to auto refresh the dashboard every hour. So on every hour, it'll automatically refresh the dashboard with the newest information. That doesn't exist on the version of Razor's Edge that I'm on right now. Okay, like I said, you can print in this version of Razor's Edge. You can send this as an email if you have Outlook as your main email, but inexplicably that is something that they have removed in newer versions of the program. I have no idea why, because it was pretty awesome. It was the only part in Razor's Edge where you could directly send a report or a dashboard to someone as an email without having to go through a couple of different steps to be able to do that. So that's a feature I'm going to miss. But it seems like that one's gone. So I'm going to click on this zoom button here to zoom it, and you're going to see here in the graph you have your total given and your overall goal. And then over here at the bottom you've got your campaign, your goal, your amount received, the variance or the difference between the two, the number of donors, number of gifts, average gift, and the total committed. So amount received is what has been received so far, and committed is the amount that's been pledged so far. So committed is cash, and pledge payments, and amount received is cash and any payments towards that pledge that have come in so far. Now, see how this capital campaign part is hyperlinked? This is what I mean about being able to drill down into it and make adjustments as you go along. So if your goal, for example, has changed, then you have the ability to go in and adjust your goal here. And then when you save and close and refresh it, it will take that change it is that you have made. So I'm going to minimize this panel. And then I'm going to add an additional panel to this dashboard by going to Customize, which is kind of like Edit. And it takes me back here. And from here, I can go ahead and add an additional panel to that dashboard. So the next one that I'm going to add is one under the gift section here called a recent gift list. Again, I double clicked on it or hit add to move it from the left to the right. And once it's here, I can double click on it or hit edit to be able to double click and load on it. I'm sorry, did somebody have a question? If you have a question, just let me know in the chat part, or let me know if you want me to unmute you so that you can ask a question. Yeah, so just let me know if you've got any questions. Go ahead and ask them in the chat part of the program. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead. Well, go ahead and ask it if you need to. I'll read it once it comes up. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. Oh, okay. Sorry, it says, in the last panel, was the average gift based on the amount pledged or the amount received? That is a very good question. No one's ever asked that before. To be honest, I have to test it to find out. I'd have to go in and add an additional gift and see whether the average is changing based on an actual cash payment or the pledge amount. If it changes, then I'll know what's on one, and if it doesn't, then I'll know what's on the pledge. I'm going to assume it's the amount received because the graph as well, when it shows the amount received, is pulling from the amount received and not the amount pledged. So I'm going to assume that it's basing it on the amount received, but let me test it once the class is over, or I can do it a little bit later, and I'll get back to you with an answer. Okay, you're welcome. When naming the dashboard capital campaign, what field of the gift entry is this name pulling from? Oh, well, I gave the campaign itself a name here in that panel, which is just the name that's on the report or the panel itself, which you can just type in wherever you want. It's not on the gift anywhere. But because I'm looking for campaign information, capital campaign information, that usually comes from the campaign. So if you're on a gift and you're looking at the campaign fund and appeal, that's usually coming from, like, clicking this button here shows me or narrows down, filters by the campaign area of a gift so that it's looking at gifts that have been given specifically to that campaign. The job of a campaign in Razor's Edge is to report on big level numbers. So that's kind of what it is that when you look at the campaign part of Razor's Edge, what it should be summarizing for in the types of report. It's meant to look at capital campaign versus annual giving versus special events versus planned giving, missing one, versus say major gifts, right? It's to give you a snapshot of those big areas. And so why most organizations never have more than 5. If you've got more than 5, you've probably added in a bunch of things that really should be appeals, and they're in the kind of the wrong place. It is notoriously messy because I think a lot of people find campaigns hard to define, and because the word campaign we also use simultaneously as the definition for what an appeal is. There's a lot of confusion over what needs to be one and what needs to be the other. Okay, so over here under the recent gift area, I double clicked to move it from the left to the right, and then here I'm going to double click on it or hit edit to open it so that I can adjust it. Okay, so it's here, and I'm just going to give this a name here. I'm going to call it Recent Gifts to Capital Campaign. Now this is a dashboard panel that's used in a couple of different ways. I mean, you can use it in a lot of different ways, but I'm going to give you 2 examples of how it is that we use it. A lot of times this dashboard is used to identify gifts as they come in. So somebody wants to double check as gifts are coming in, they want to be able to see them coming in so that they can see any donations that might be related to them, or they might be the solicitor that's responsible for them. They're either using it so that they can double check that it's coded properly, that the right person has been added as the solicitor, maybe to see whether or not it's been connected to a proposal once it is that has come in. So that's one way that we're using it, not as a financial report, but just as a tool to identify those donations as they come in, either as a double check or because maybe there is a next step that you need to do based on that report. Meaning, say you're responsible for all donations over $1,000, and when they come in, you either send a personalized email or a personalized letter, or you follow up with a personalized phone call. So I'll show you how once the dashboard is run, we could use that dashboard for that reason. If it's used as a financial report instead of just an identification of what it is that's coming in, that really does change the gift types it is that you're looking at. I'll explain why that is, but over here, you'll see that we've got the first thing it's asking me is the date range, and you can see that it's limited by the dates that it's showing me. It's showing me this week, last week, this month, last month, all the way back to last fiscal year, but it doesn't do date ranges. So I can't see 2 years. I can see this year or last year, this month, this week, but it doesn't give me a lot of flexibility there. So I'm going to choose last fiscal year only because we're in a sample and there's not a ton of information. Now this feature here is kind of amazing. This is do not show me gifts less than. So like I said before, if you're someone who's responsible for all gifts that have come in over a certain amount, then this is really important because it's the only report that I know of in Razor's Edge that allows you to filter by an amount right in the report itself. So everything that's a filter is one more reason why you don't have to query. I don't have to query to get a date range because I can filter from it right here. I don't need to query to find board members because I could find them right from here. I don't need to query for the gift types because I can narrow down to them from here. And the same thing with campaign funds and appeals. I don't need to query to narrow down to any of these because I have access to all of them right from within the report. So as you can see, as long as your coding is correct and matches the definitions of what Razor's Edge feels like they need to be, the less you need to query in Razor's Edge. So I'm not going to filter by an amount because we have limited information in the sample database, but usually I would. You can ask whether or not you want to include soft credits. Again, if I'm using this as a reference to see what's coming in, I probably would include soft credits because I might not recognize the company name, but I would recognize the individual who's connected to the corporation that is giving a donation. That may be a gift in kind, or a matching gift, or through a family foundation or corporation. All right, I can base this on a query, a constituent query or a gift query here to narrow down even more specifically to a certain type of gifts. Or I can narrow down to a specific group of people by narrowing down by constituency code. Here under gift types, this is really important. If in this report here you include pledges and pledge payments, and you're using this as a financial report, at the bottom, it's going to double count your money and your numbers will be off. So if you're using this as a financial report, then make sure that you are either looking at money that's been pledged or the payments that have been received, but that you're not checking both because that will double count. Now, as always, you want to double check to see whether or not, excuse me, you want to include gift in kind, or if you have any money labeled as other, that you either want to include or exclude. I'm going to check everything just so that we can see kind of an example of everything that's there. And then here under campaigns, I'm going to hit select, capital, double click on it to move from the left to the right, or hit the arrow, and then say OK. Always click on columns to show to see what your options are. Here there's a lot more options and I'm going to bring them all over. Say OK. And then OK again. It's going to bring me to my main page here. And then OK again to load it. Okay. So once this loads up, I'm going to hit this button here to zoom it. You can see that this shows me the date, the name of the constituent, the amount, the constituency code, or the top constituency code on the record, which I'm going to go over in a minute, gift type, campaign fund, appeal, and payment method. Okay, so it's a really good overview and snapshot. But on top of that, it does a couple of really cool things. So like I said before, if I'm looking at this because there's a next step that I want to do, and then I can see a gift that's come in that is over a certain amount and immediately click on their record, and it'll drill me down and open up that constituent's record, which will then give me access to either send them a personalized email right from here if you've got Outlook as your primary email part. If they have a phone number here, I can follow up with a personalized phone call, or I can use this feature here to write them an individualized personalized letter. So like I said, it'll drill you down into parts of the program where you can do a next step if that's the intention. If I save and close here, it's going to bring me back into the dashboard. And if I click on the date that is hyperlinked, then it drills me down into the specific gift that they just gave. So from here, I can do things like confirm that the right solicitor has been added onto that gift. Or I can see this little icon at the bottom. That's an icon that tells me that this gift was entered in through a batch. But next to the date, if this gift was connected to a proposal, or was a payment towards a registration that was connected to the event module, or was connected to a membership, then little icons for each one of those areas would appear here. So for example, if you know this gift is supposed to be connected to a proposal that has come in, just looking down here and not seeing that icon would immediately tell you that this gift was not connected to a proposal. If you have access rights, you can link this gift to a proposal right from here. See that? Okay. So, or you can add yourself as the solicitor if you weren't added on the solicitor before. So it allows you to drill down in and make some changes, or just to identify something. If you know something's missing, you can also send just an email to someone to let them know that it needs to be updated from there as well. Okay, so that is showing you how you can drill down into the constituent record and you can drill down into the gift. I want to talk a little bit here about the constituency code because I don't think that this is explained enough what this means and what it's showing. And because this constituency code here is showing up in more and more reports and dashboards, it's important that we understand which one it's showing and why it is that it's showing. Okay. Because someone can have multiple constituency codes on the record, but it's only showing us one. And which one is it showing us? So let me explain what that means. If I go to someone's record here, okay, we all know that we find constituency codes here under Bio 2. But what people don't tell you is that constituency codes need to be entered in as a hierarchy. Someone's most important relationship to your organization needs to be the top constituency code on their record. Okay, so for example, alumni needs to be beneath board member if you consider board member to be their primary constituency code. And the reason behind that is every single time you enter in a gift, whether you know that you may never know that it's doing it, but it's doing it whether you do anything or not. Every single time you go to enter in a gift, it is immediately coding that gift with a gift constituency. It's taking the top constituency code on the record and putting it right here as the gift constituency, which is the constituency code that more often than not is showing up on the dashboard that is there. It's showing you the gift constituency, not the constituent code, right? And the reason why that's important is people move on and off boards, right? And that gift will always illustrate what they were at the time that that gift was made. So when someone asks you a report that says something like, how many board members gave last year as opposed to the number of board members that gave this year, right? Constituency code on Bio 2 would not be able to answer that question because this only shows somebody's primary, what they are right now, okay? And if they are a board member now but weren't a board member last year, this type of reporting doesn't do that. But if you run a report by gift constituency, you can see exactly who was a board member, who gave board member gifts last year as opposed to who gave board member gifts this year. So again, if you are running those dashboards and reports and you are running it by constituency and the constituency code that you see next to that person's name is incorrect, it's because your constituency codes here are in the wrong order and they're defaulting onto the gifts in the wrong order. So just to give you another bit of information here, end dates on constituency codes are evil. They are bad, bad, bad things, okay? What happens, unfortunately, with them, so for example, and I know that Blackbaud is telling people to do this, but it's just flat out wrong. Board members here, if you are a current board member, this says board member. If you are a former board member, it has to say former board member because the begin dates and end dates don't work the way that I need them to for two reasons that I'm going to illustrate. The first one being that if I go in and I leave this as board member, but I go in and put in an end date, technically that person's gifts then would be considered former board member gifts. That would be their next constituency that's the highest in importance. But the second that you put an end date here, not only does it eliminate them from a slew of reports, not consistently, of course, because that would be too easy, but only some reports. They just stop appearing in them altogether. But the second that you put an end date here, instead of those gifts being coded as board member or former board member gifts, it's just going to the next constituency code on their record and coding their gifts as that constituency instead. So again, you got to understand what the codes are doing and the way that they're moving on to the gifts. I understand that they're telling people to use begin date and end dates. That's one example of why it is that they don't work properly. The next is this. We want to make the system as easy and simple to use as possible, which always means you're reducing the amount of querying that needs to take place. So say that I'm in a database and I want to be able to run board member labels, right? And I want to include both former and current board members. Then it should be as easy as being able to go here, go to filters, select on constituency code, and choose board member. You'll see here that there is no ability here to pull from begin and end dates. So that again, you have a lot less flexibility and when you're able to bring over both in mail and all of the reports because you don't have the ability to filter by begin dates and end dates. Sometimes you want to include them, but that end date would automatically exclude them, which means instead of it being really easy to pull over who you want, like here, you now have to build the exact same thing you should be getting from here into a query, which means if there was something that you really needed to query and narrow down for, you would have to now build a new query so that you could include both the constituency part and the additional criteria it is that you have. So again, it's taking something that should be simple and making it more complicated than it needs to be. I'm someone who believes that if we are incredibly picky with the way that we enter information into Razor's Edge, then everything flows really simply into mail and reports. I'd rather control the coding and make sure that the reporting is simple than have simple entry and then have to customize every single report that comes out of Razor's Edge. Personally, that's my preference. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And again, feel free to ask any questions as we're going through. That's the constituency code that's showing up here. I'm going to minimize this one. And I'm going to hit customize again to bring over yet another dashboard panel. And I'm going to scroll down, and this time I'm going to bring one over that's called an overdue gift list. Okay, and I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to call this overdue pledges, which is really what it is. Overdue pledges to capital campaign. Okay, I'm going to ask not to see soft credits. And usually I would go here and choose capital. I'm not going to do that in this case because there's not a lot of information in my sample database, and I want it to show you as much information as possible. So whereas I would have narrowed down by here, I'm going to leave it open to all options. I'm going to click here on select next to columns to show and check all. And then say okay. And then okay again. And what it's doing is the system is going through every pledge in the database and pulling into this dashboard every one of them that is considered past due or overdue. This is an excellent report to keep you on top of your pledge payments and how many reminders it is that need to go out and when they need to go out, and did someone receive a reminder, did they not receive a reminder. So I'm going to click on here to zoom this. And as you can see here, it's showing me the constituent's name, the date. This will drill you down into the original pledge. This drills you down into the constituent record. So one of the benefits of it drilling down into the pledge is that you have the ability to adjust the schedule or change or even write it off. You can do a lot of editing and cleaning right from within the dashboard. This is the total amount of the pledge. This is the amount currently past due. This was when the last payment, if any, had been made. And this is when the last reminder is sent. So like I said before, too many people are not using mail to generate mail. There is a part of the program here in Mail that's job is to send and issue pledge reminders. It's called reminders. When you generate your reminders from within Razor's Edge, it is automatically coding those gifts every time a reminder is sent, and then therefore connecting here to show you a check and balance of when the last reminder is sent. So this is really important because this is telling me, hey, you're not issuing reminders to these people. They're not giving because no reminder has been sent. Or, oh no, I just sent a reminder out last month and they still haven't responded. So it's meant to give you a clue and an audit trail to know what's being sent and what's not being sent. Then again, you've got the campaign, the fund, the appeal, and the top constituency code on the record again. Okay, and I'm just going to minimize here. Anyone have any questions about any of the ones that we've done so far? I'll just let you type it in the chat part, and then I'll answer that as it comes through if you have any questions at all about those ones. So that's an overdue pledge list. If I hit customize again, I'm going to bring over my favorite I think it's my favorite dashboard. It's my favorite dashboard because this is something that if you work with pledges, that you are absolutely generating this. You are just generating it probably through Excel or something that, again, is making you work a lot harder than you need to. So under the gift section here, there is something here called a expected gift summary. I'm going to double click and bring it over and then double click on it again. Again, I would do this specific to the capital campaign, but there's not a lot of information here. So I'm just going to make it in general. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the total from month to fiscal year. And then I'm going to switch the breakdown so that it's showing it to me by constituent, the very last one. Okay. I only want to see it in a table, and normally I would narrow it by campaign. Although you could do it for everyone if you just want to see all of them. Now, what's great about this is an expectancy report. So if you have a capital campaign going on, then you're constantly being asked how much expected revenue from pledges is expected to come in for the capital campaign in the upcoming fiscal years. And this report answers that question. So it gives you, eventually, everybody in the database who has a pledge that is upcoming or that it's current. Okay, and then it shows you the amount that they have upcoming in each of the upcoming fiscal years. Then it shows you a total amount per person, and my favorite part here, a total amount of expected revenue from pledges in each of the upcoming fiscal years. So this is a really good snapshot for finance or for the board to let you know expected revenue from pledges, either for a capital campaign or just in general. And like I said, this is something that you can run in reports, but I find it very messy and hard to read in reports. Whereas here, it could not be clearer and more and easier to read. And again, it's a snapshot. All you have to do is hit refresh and it's automatically showing you that. Now, there's a way that I can use this exact same dashboard, but tweak it in a different way for a completely different purpose. So say again, I'm the person who's responsible for sending out pledge reminders. Then I could take this dashboard and instead of breaking it down by fiscal year, I could break it down by month. And now I'm using it as a check and balance so that I know exactly how many pledge reminders I should be sending out in the upcoming months. So now what it's doing is it's taking everybody who has a pledge payment that is upcoming in February, March, and April. And it shows me exactly who they are and how much is upcoming. Okay. So that I know these are the number of pledge reminders I need to issue in that month. I can use it as a double check to make sure that Razor's Edge is spitting out exactly the number that I have, or if you don't have enough pledges, you only have one or two that are coming in, then this is a really great way of identifying who they are, what they're for, who needs one to be issued. And again, this is what I love about dashboards is that these things exist. There's so much it is that we could be doing, and it's right there at a click of a button for you to be able to get it. So we've built 4 really great dashboards, and we haven't had to build one query so far to get that information. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to some annual giving dashboards. So now I'm going to hit New Dashboard to create a brand new dashboard, and I'm going to call this one Annual Giving. Okay, and I'm going to start off by bringing over an appeal summary. And I'm going to double click on the appeal summary here. And I'm going to call this, give it a name. And this is going to be called a 15-16 Annual Giving Fall Direct Mail Appeal. That's usually my coding for what it is that I code things. So appeals always have a year associated with them, unless it's an appeal for planned giving, because you don't ask for a planned gift more than once. But every appeal in Razor's Edge, an appeal is an ask, and all asks need to have an individual appeal so that you can compare and contrast what it is that they do. So again, that is very important. Under output, you're going to ask to see this information as a table and a graph. Under appeals to include, I'm going to hit select. And I'm going to bring over the 15-16 Annual Giving Fall Direct Mail Appeal. Double click on it or hit the arrow to move it from the left to the right. and say okay. Then over here, gift types to include. Like I said, it's showing me the payments rather than the pledge, but because it's a summary dashboard, I can choose all, and if they have pledges, it's going to divide them into separate columns and won't double count. Okay, I'm not going to pick a date range because, again, the date range is defined by the appeal. Let me explain, again, another angle of why that's important. Okay, it is a completely different thing to report on how much money came in between this date and this date than it is to report on how successful this appeal was. This appeal success is defined by every gift that comes in connected to it, regardless of when it is that comes in. So when we are asking for information based on a date range, that is a report for finance. Finance cares about when the money came in related to a fiscal year or calendar year. Fundraising, I don't care when money came in. I'm trying to analyze how well my appeal did. And so say for example, if this appeal was an event, sometimes I'm chasing people, I'm chasing after people for money way after an event is over, and sometimes people prepay money to an event way before it starts. Or sometimes if I'm a school, a parent will say, it's December, here's my annual fund gift for this year, and here's my annual fund gift for next year. So don't even bother asking me again for next year, right? So that means when that money comes in, I need to apply a portion of it to an appeal for this year and a portion of it to an appeal for the next year so that it reports accurately, but also so that I don't send them an ask again for an appeal that they've already given to. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons why it is that you need to make sure that they have years, but that's just two of them. Also, you want to make sure that you're not confusing what is an appeal with what is a campaign, because appeals have the ability to be able to do a lot of things that campaigns cannot do. Okay, so I'm going to hit columns to show and hit select and hit check all. So when we talk about all those things that they can do that campaigns can't do, when we run it, it's going to illustrate some of them right away. Okay, so it's going to bring this up, and I'm just going to show you where that capital campaign dashboard went in case you need to reload it or you need to know how to switch between different dashboards. They are right here. If you click on there, you should be able to see all of your dashboards and flip from one to another from here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom this panel up, and as you can see, it starts off pretty similar. The name of the appeal, the goal, the amount received, the variance, number of donors, number of gifts, the average gift. Here's where it gets different. Appeals have the ability to track expenses, okay, which then helps calculate your cost per dollar raised. Appeals, if we talk a little bit more about remember how I said you need to be using the parts of the program to create the things that it was meant to. Numbers solicited, solicitations, asks are created through a part of the program called quick letters. They create your direct mail appeals, your invitations to events, your newsletters. All of those things that create lists are created through a part in mail called quick letters. When you are creating those things through quick letters, not only does it remove duplicates and segment that mailing list so that you know who's getting which particular ask, but it also then goes back onto the constituent record, tracks exactly the number of people that received each appeal and package after it's gotten rid of the duplicates, and then tracks on the appeal tab of the constituent record that they received that piece of mail. So again, that's what that feature does. You generate it there, it codes the record so that when you get into the reports, which is the end result, then here it calculates my cost per dollar raised. It's plugged in immediately my number solicited, which then calculates my percentage donated. Okay, so again, these parts really illustrate how the system is working together in conjunction with the reports, but because we're only using pieces of the system, we don't get the benefits in the output. Okay, and then here's my total committed. Now, I'm going to click on the appeal and just show you where a few things are. Okay, here's where I can put in my goal. Okay, here's where the system calculates my number solicited and adds it in. Here are my packages, which when the quick letter again, generates that mailing list and codes them. It's filling in the number solicited for each package. Okay, and then here on the last one is my ability to track expenses there, which is what's calculating here. All right, so all of those parts are kind of plugged into the same thing. Can I see a show of hands in the control panel? There's a little button there on the control panel for the hand things. Can I see a show of hands of how many of you are using packages? Okay. Okay, great. That means some of you aren't. So let me just give a definition of what a package is, so that if you're not using them, you can have some idea of what it is that they're used for. A package is a segmentation of an appeal, and they can be used in a variety of different ways, depending on the type of mailing it is that you're doing. Primarily, what it means is that if I'm issuing an ask, if I'm asking everybody exactly the same way, then usually that appeal does not have packages. But if I am creating an appeal and I'm asking different groups of people in different ways, either because of who they are or how much they've given or how recently they've given or even what they've given to, then that appeal has packages. So some examples would be, if you were a school and you were doing 15-16 annual giving fall direct mail appeal, then your packages for that appeal usually are things like board member, current parent, past parent, alumni, grandparent, friend. Okay, those are, so you're sending different letters specifically to those different groups of people. Now, if you were, say, a museum, you might be sending them to board members, and then another letter to members, and then another letter to donors that aren't members, and then maybe another letter to people who used to be members and then stopped being, like, lapsed members, right? Gives you the ability to send out targeted, segmented mailings as part of the same appeal that you're sending out. Another example would be, say, if you're a hospital. Sometimes your packages would be, if somebody sent a letter out specific, you're sending one letter targeted out to people who gave donations to pediatrics, and another one who gave to oncology, and another ones who gave, say, to the capital campaign. So you can send them out in different ways. The last example is another one that's commonly used by all nonprofits, and that is by how recent their giving is. So you could do one package that is going out for acquisition, people who have never given before. You could do another letter out that's going out to people who have given a gift recently. You could do another one to people who gave a gift last year but not this year. And then the final one could be to people who have given in the past but not within the last 3 years. Okay, so again, it's targeting asks, creating letters based on who it is that they are, where the wording in the letter is asking them a different way, and then you're tracking, like that appeal and package summary let you do, the percentage of response that you're getting. Now, the final way of doing that is if it's an event. This is my favorite cheat it is that we have. And that is that when you are creating, I'm just going to create one here. So I'm going to hit customize. So it goes back into this one here. And this time I'm going to bring over, instead of an appeal summary, an appeal package response dashboard. And I'm going to double click on this one here. I'm going to ask to see this just as a table. And under appeals to include, I'm going to hit select. And I'm going to bring over the fall direct mail appeal, and I'm going to bring over the gala, and why not? I'll bring over the proposals as well. Okay, and then I'll hit OK. I'm going to choose the last fiscal year because I think there's more information in there, and then always check columns to show. In this case, there isn't any additional options, but if there were, I could select them. And then where it says gift types to include, I'm gonna choose everything. And hit OK, and then OK. And we'll see how this one looks. So if I zoom this one up, then you'll see a few here. The first one is my fall giving direct mail, and there you go. So you've got how much was raised from that appeal in total, and then a breakdown of how much was raised from each letter and The report connected to this gives you a response rate for each of the packages as well. Now, for an event, instead of making it mail related, I make it revenue related. So what I do here is this is how much money was raised from my gala, but my packages are my gold sponsorship, my silver sponsorship, tickets, individual tables, auction donations, auction purchases, donations made on site. It's my full revenue stream so that I can see how much money came in total, but how much of my money came in from all of those different things all at the same time. And I'm not sure if the proposal one has packages. It doesn't. So so this one doesn't need it there, but just to kind of show you. And then again, that gives you just such a great, the job of reports is to answer questions. This is your ability. I always say, now I don't have to run reports for you anymore because all you need to do is hit refresh. All your questions are answered. You just need to hit refresh on the dashboard and it will give you an instant update of where we are on all of those different areas. Okay, any questions on any of the ones we've created so far? Just take a minute to see, to let anybody load any if they have any questions. Okay. All right. Again, maybe if you have a question, if you want to hit the hands up so that I know that you're typing something out, that would be great. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any questions right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit customize again. I'm going to go back into the annual giving dashboard and I'm going to bring over another appeal summary. This time I'm going to bring over that appeal summary and use it in a different way. So I'm going to double click on it. And this time, instead of, so I'm going to make it a table and a graph. Actually, I'm just going to make it a table in this case. Under appeals to include it, instead of just bringing over the 1516 fall direct mail appeal, this time I'm going to bring over the 12, 13, 13, 14, 15, 16, 15, 16. So basically, I'm creating a comparison report by bringing over all of the appeals with those years into the same one. And now when I run it, it's going to give me a complete breakdown of what all my, how I've done in the last few years for that same appeal. Which again, don't judge my fundraising based on what's in the sample database, please, because there's only like 3 gifts in the whole system. Although I guess, no, that's awful. Okay, that one's not bad, I suppose, but man, we've come a long way apparently. All right, so that's basically what it is going to show you, is that that's a comparison of how you've done year to year, and if you had included the graph, it would show you a graph year after year as well. So I'm going to hit customize. And instead of bringing over, so we're going to go back into the same one that we did. I'm just going to take these ones out. So I'm taking these ones out. And instead of bringing those over, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over everything that would be considered 1516 appeal, or at least an annual giving appeal. And what this lets me do, I love this report, because, and I call this like my annual giving snapshot. What I'm doing here is I'm bringing over every single appeal. I create my appeals right at the beginning of the either calendar or fiscal year for the new year. And every single one of them with their goals, if we have them in advance, are listed here. It's still loading. It's going to take a minute for it to refresh. Okay, so now what it'll show me is every appeal that we have upcoming. For every one that is taking place, the amount of money will start automatically filling in. For the ones that haven't happened yet, they'll be empty. And at the bottom is the total for where we are in annual giving so far. So it's like giving me a detail of every appeal that's happened, answering the question of how well each one did, but then at the bottom also answering the question of how well we're doing in annual giving altogether. all of these appeals together, they combine to make up your annual giving campaign. Campaign is that big bucket, but this answers both of those questions at the same time. Okay, I'm going to minimize this one here. Any questions about any of the ones we've built so far? No? Okay, so I'm going to bring over one more dashboard panel, and then we'll move on to the reports section. So I'm going to hit customize, and this is another pretty cool dashboard. This is one where I usually do narrow it down by a campaign like annual, but again, I won't because we don't have a lot of information in the sample database. But usually when you're looking at it, you are looking at it for a particular segment. Because if not, then you run it and people are like, oh, but it's showing event gifts and I don't want to see event gifts. So again, it's the best way to kind of narrow down to specifically you want. Under the gift section, it's called donor giving analysis, and double click on it to move it over here. I'm going to double click on it to open it. Again, I'm going to switch this to last fiscal year just so that we get better numbers as a result. And then again, I'm not gonna choose anything else. I'm just gonna leave it the way that it is and hit OK, and OK again. Okay, and then zoom this panel up and wait for it to load. This is a pretty cool dashboard because this is showing me a breakdown of for annual giving in the last, I think fiscal year was what I picked. The number of repeat, increased, new, recovered, and decreased donors that we had in that time period. The number of them all together, which would be total number of donors, and the total amount of money it is that they raised. Okay, so again, this is one where you should be either including money received or money pledged, but if you include both, it's going to double count. So these numbers will be off and that total will absolutely be off. So again, this is a really great one. When I run this dashboard, the first thing that people ask me is, how can I is there a dashboard that's going to show me who it is that they are and what's in here? And it's like, no, there is no dashboard that will show you this, but each one of these corresponds to a report in Raiser's Edge. Like a repeat one would be like a consecutive years giving. An increase, decrease is a specific report in Raiser's Edge. New is a new donor report. Recovered is like a LIBUNT or a SIBUNT, more like a SIBUNT than a LIBUNT report here. So that would be recovered. So each one of these corresponds with not a dashboard, but a report to give you the detailed analysis of who it is that they are. Okay, so any questions about either any of the dashboards that we've built or about dashboards in general before we move on to the reports section? No? Okay, again, feel free to ask anything in the chat part as we're going through, and I can answer it as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the reports section here. And I'm going to start off with a really basic report. But I'm going to start off with this report because even though it's basic, it is a report that took me a really long time to figure out how to do it properly. And like a lot of things in Raiser's Edge, you would never figure it out unless someone showed it to you. So, or not likely anyway. So I'm going to show you how it is that you do that. And that is a contact report. So in the report section, I'm going to go to the profiles, lists, and directories. And from here, I'm going to click on the constituent directory. Okay. And say I need to build a board member directory. So I'm going to do that by going first to filters, choosing constituency code, switching it from include all to include selected, choosing board member from here and either hitting one arrow or the double click arrow to move them from the left to the right and say OK. All right. Then I'm going to go to tab number 4 here, which is the individual address and the organization address. Now in every report, they do exactly the same thing. Their job is to ask you whether or not you want to see contact information on this report. If you want to see contact information, then you're going to say address. If you don't want to see any, you would say none. In most reports, you absolutely do not want to see address and contact information. But this is a contact report, so you usually do. And see how this one has settings for the first address, settings for the second. Settings for the first is perfect. It's going to address and it's bringing over the preferred. Now, when I go to settings for the second, I'm going to switch that to phone. Okay. And then I want all phone types here. And then again, for the time being, at least until you upgrade to the new version, you want to bring over preferred because the phone numbers are connected to that preferred address. Okay. Now, whenever it is that you're using any report in Raiser's Edge, this is really, really, really important. And you need to do it in every report. And again, this is just kind of to show you that how unintuitive Raiser's Edge are. Because the most important information in any report that you run in Raiser's Edge is always on the very last tab down here under details, called something so obscure you would never think to go here in a million years. That is where they put the feature that in every report you should never not go there, right? You always need to go there to see if there's something that you need to see, right? And again, I don't understand the logic behind this, but you can see in part why this is important. We're creating a board member report here. This gives us the option for if you're a school to include the maiden name, and if you are if you're not, just to include the spouse, which a lot of times you want to be able to see on a contact report. This is a pretty cool feature as well, but I'm going to run the report without it and then run it again with it so you can see the difference in appearance. It just changes the appearance of the report. So I'll include the spouse just so you can see what that looks like as well, and hit preview. Okay. All right, so this one is going to give you the name of the board member and their spouse, their address, and then all of their contact information. Like if you look at Robert and Wendy here, all of their contact information right there, which is great because there's not many reports in the dashboard that show you all of the contact information. A lot of them only limit it to show you a bit of it. So I'm going to close this one here and show you what happens when we hit this button here. Group by first initial. And hit preview. Okay, so now it's looking a little bit more like a directory, and you'd be able to see the names kind of in alphabetical order in this way. So again, that's a pretty cool feature to make it look more specifically like a directory. Okay, and that is a board member contact list. Again, feel free to ask any questions as we go through. Okay, the next report that I'm going to run is, so for example, I mean, if there's any report that I know that everybody is using, it's a report here under financial reports called the gift detail summary. In some cases, it's the only report that's being used at all. And so what I want to make sure is that if you're not using this report, maybe in some cases where a different report would give you a better result than what you're using already. So for example, say that somebody wanted a financial report for giving for board members. Okay, could I do that as a gift detail summary report? Absolutely, but it's a much better report through the constituent giving history area. So let me show you what this one here looks like. So I can either double click on it or hit new, and it'll open a new one. When I create a report, the first thing that I do is save it and give it a name, because Raiser's Edge has a tendency to freeze or explode or just randomly close for no reason whatsoever, and then you've lost whatever it is that you were working on. So the first thing that I do is save it, giving history. or board member giving history. Okay, and I always allow other people to modify and hit save. All right, now if I want board member giving just for this year, I would select this calendar year, this fiscal year. If I wanted it for a specific date range, I would choose specific date range here. Otherwise, I just leave it at all dates, and that's all board member giving. Now, because they're board members, I usually do include soft credits because a lot of board members give either through family foundations or corporations, and I want to see an overall picture of exactly how much it is that they've raised, and that allows me to do both. Then I'm going to go here to the filters, and like I did before, choose include selected board members and say OK. All right, then I'm going to go to the gift types here. In this one, it's including all type of money, and that's okay because this report itself is going to divide that money up into the way that we want to be able to see it. The columns gives you options to bring over additional fields, like if I wanted to bring over the name of the appeal or maybe what's in the reference field, I could bring that over. I can rename the columns here and adjust the column width to either increase or decrease the amount of space that they're taking up in the report. I can also change the orientation from portrait to landscape from here. Now I'm going to check number 6 and number 7, the individual and organization, just to make sure that it does not include an address. You need to check because it's completely inconsistent. In some reports, it defaults to not showing. In some reports, it defaults to showing. And in almost none of them do I actually want that address information to appear. So I'm usually just checking to see that it says no. And then I'm going to go to Format. Here under Headings is where I would change the name. And I'm just going to change that from Constituent Giving History to Board Giving History. And again, subtitle, I would say lifetime, or you could track it in any way that you want to. I could say between 2005 and 2016, however whatever you want that subtitle to be if you need one. Then I'm going to click on details and look at why this is important. This is giving me the option to include non-givers, which for something like a board giving history report is really important. I want to know which board members are giving 0 and which board members are giving nothing. If this feature did not exist, if I didn't know to go to details, then the only people that I would be seeing on this report are the board members that have given, not the board members that haven't given and a 0 next to their name. So again, these options are incredibly important. If I need to change the name of how it is that they appear in the report, I would do that from here as well. Okay, and then I'm going to hit preview at the bottom here. Okay, and that gives me the name of the board member. They're giving in the order in which they appear, and then the fund, the amount, and a subtotal. So I'm just going to go to a board member that has a lot of different types of gifts, like Sid the Kid here, and you can see this is his total for cash, this is his total for pledge, and the balance. So that's the amount of his pledge. This is the amount that's currently outstanding on that there. And I'm just going to go to Robert Hernandez so you can see some additional breakdown here. Okay, he's gone to the next page. So I click here to go to the next page and see that total cash, the total amount pledged and the balance, the total amount of in-kind, and the total amount of stock. So usually we count this with this. You would probably group that together to get a total, but these you usually want to see separately. So that's great there. Okay, and that is a board member giving history report. Okay. Any questions about any of the ones we've created so far? Okay, in a few minutes I'm going to open it up just for questions and requests so that if anyone wants to know just any particular types of dashboards and reports and how to build them, then we can definitely answer questions from there. I'm going to go over, I mean, people ask me a lot, what are the best reports in Razor's Edge? And without a doubt, that answer is the analytical reports. Why? Because every single one of them is a good report. Every single analytical report is interesting and gives me some pretty cool information. So I really like going here because I think you can see a lot of information that's worthwhile and useful here. So some of the best ones are, here's a LIBUNT report and a SciBunt report. Let me just define what it is that they are. A LIBUNT report is going to identify people who gave last year but have not repeated their gift yet this year. Okay, that's what a LIBUNT report does. You gave a gift last year, but unfortunately not this. That's what it's called. Last year, but unfortunately not this. And it gives a description here. Whereas a SciBunt is a some year, but unfortunately not this. Okay, and that's people who gave in the past, but not within the time period that I've selected. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, you run them pretty much exactly the same. So I'm going to run the SciBunt report here. And I'm going to save, and I'm just going to call it SciBunt last 5 years. Okay. And I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to, so this says here, include constituents who gave a gift but not within this date range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to specific range. And I'm going to make this, they have to have given a gift in the past, but they haven't given a gift within the last 5 years. So I'm going to do my start date, click here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll make that January. So January 1st, 2011 till December 31st, 2016. That's my date range. Okay, then again, I'm going to gift types. I'll include everything, but you could take out pledges if you only want to see money that's actually been received. Yeah, I probably only want to see money that's been received. So I'm going to take out pledge, and I'm going to take out matching gift pledge, which I think I just passed. Where did you go? There you are. Okay. And I'm going to go to tab number 5. Aha. Take that out. It makes the report a lot longer for no good reason. Then I'm going to go to tab number 7. And I'm going to, here I would rename it. And then details. Here in the details, it's giving me the option of whether or not I want this sorted by gift amount. Gift amount would be greatest donor, people who've given the most, sorted, given the most to the least. Constituents would just sort them alphabetically. In this case, I absolutely want to see the biggest donors that I've lost first. So I'm going to leave it sorted by gift amount. Sometimes in the details, you'll see a field option here called optional columns. That's going to give you the option to either bring over more additional columns. I'm going to bring over the total amount given in this case. And then I'm going to hit preview. And this report is going to find and identify everybody who gave a gift in the past, but not within the last 5 years. So there should be no gift here that is more recent than 5 years ago. Then it shows me the name of the company and the amount that they gave. So the reason that I brought over the total giving was because of something like this. See? Last gift was 22,000, but they've given a total of 48. That's different than someone who say, like this one here, their last gift was their only gift. They've only given us one gift ever, as opposed to someone who gave gifts in the past and then for some reason stopped giving, right? So I want to be able to differentiate between the two. Okay. And yeah, and then that's who it is they are. That's a LIBUNT report. Okay, save. and close. So we'll do one more and then I'll open it up to questions. So can I see a show of hands of how many of you need to create a either donor wall listing or an annual report listing broken down by giving levels? Can I see a show of hands of how many of you need to create something like that? Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm gonna erase that. And I wanna see a show of hands of how many of you are creating that by using the donor category report in Raiser's Edge. How many of you are using the donor category report to create that donor wall or donor listing? Okay, some of you are, which is great. But for those of you that are not, let me show you how you should be creating, using that report to create that. So first things first, because again, they could never make something easy. They always have to kind of overcomplicate it. The first thing you need to do is to go in and make sure that your giving levels are reflected in the database. And that you would find here under configurations, over here under tables. And in the tables section, you'll see, because it's a default, you'll see 3 areas here: donor category table 1, 2, and 3. Everybody has those. Now, if you click on them, that means that someone at one point or another has gone in and put in giving levels for your organization. And if they are empty, it means no one's ever used them because no one ever knew they were there, right? Now, if they are correct, because a lot of people have different giving levels depending on whether they're in a capital campaign or annual giving, they can have more than one. So if you have multiple, then what you're going to do here is, and they're different, say, you've got a new one, or some of them have gone away or they've changed. What you would do here is you would double click on it and either change the minimum amounts, or if you have new ones that you need to add, you would hit new table entry, give it a name, and then enter in the minimum amount. As you enter in the minimum amounts, it creates the ranges. See that? Okay, so that's perfect. Once those levels are created, then you're going to go into reports. You're going to go back to your analytical reports. Okay, it's taking a little longer than usual. Doesn't seem to like the reports. There you go. Okay, reports, analytical. Okay, and I'm going to go to this report here called the donor category report. And if I double click on it here, it's going to open up a new one. And I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call this my annual. Oops. Annual donor levels. Now, I don't put a year because this will be the report that I use every single year. So I don't have to keep creating new ones for every year because I want this to be dynamic. This is a recognition report, so usually we are including soft credits here. And so let me see, include gifts within these date ranges. I'm going to include last fiscal year because, again, we have more information in that year. Okay, under gift types, this is one where you absolutely need to adjust it. It's automatically including pledges and payments towards pledges, and you got to take one of those out. Most likely, you're taking out pledge and matching gift pledges because this type of report is looking at money that's been received within a fiscal or calendar year, not money that's been pledged, but money that's actually been received within that time period. So I'm adding that here. Then I'm going to go to tab number 5, make sure that says none. Then go to tab number 7. I'm going to go to details. And this is important here. So here, I'm going to pull from donor category table number 2. That's where the levels that I wanted live. And I'm also going to hit this button here and bring over all of the categories. Why? Because doing that is removing all of the gifts that were under $100. That if I hadn't selected that, it would have brought over all of the ones that are $100 and lower in that year as well. But I don't want them. I only want starting at the $100 level. So I'm going to click on that and bring them over. Then I'm going to hit preview, and it is that easy to pull them over. One other thing that I'm going to show you is that a lot of times they have a very specific way that they want their names to appear. Again, talking about how the program works together, that is adjusted here. Okay, so under individual, these are your addressees and salutations. And usually an organization will have an additional addressee called a annual report or recognition addressee. You're going to choose that one and say otherwise use primary, which means if they have an annual report addressee or a recognition addressee or whatever it is that you've called it, it's going to use it. If they don't have it, it'll default to whatever their primary one is. And then I'm going to hit preview again, and you'll see how the names have changed and the names are different. So again, that does everything that you want an annual report to be able to do. This here is identifying soft credits. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just open it up to questions. So who has like a request for a report or wants to see something again or just has questions about ones we've already gone through or wants to know if there's a report in the database that will pull something specific it is that they want to know. So I'm just going to leave it open to questions. Any kind of report or dashboard questions that you want. We don't usually cover optional modules because they not everybody has them, only certain groups of people have them, and you have to kind of go over entry when it comes to those, like how things have been entered into those modules to get any of those reports to function properly anyway. Okay, can you pull donor categories by gift amount if you haven't named them? Can you pull donor categories by gift amount if you haven't named them? Meaning, if you haven't named them patron and you just have the numbers, meaning instead of patrons, it would be called 1,000 through 5,999. Yes, it just means that when you go here to create your levels, that's exactly what you're naming it. So tables, and let me go into the third one, which I think was blank. You would call it you'd call it 1 through 99. And then this would be minimum amount, $1. And then the next one, well, you'd, of course, you'd in here to make it look pretty, you'd put in the dollar signs up here. Usually you don't have to, but since it's a label, you kind of do here. So then here you'd go 99. Okay, and then you'd go into the next one and you'd say 100, or sorry, 100 through 499. And then minimum amount is 100. Does that make sense? So you're just building the levels and you're putting in the amounts as the label because that's basically what you want them to appear as in your so that label can be a name or it can just be the actual ranges of what you want them to be. You're welcome. Okay, let me see. I've got another question here. When you created the board giving report from the financial report summary, where did you go to select the non-giving option? Okay, in a report, that was a financial report, and that was a constituent giving history report. And again, you're going to go the same place where all of the cool stuff is hidden. And I'm going to say hidden because, again, look at where we're going. We're going to the very last tab, halfway down the bottom of the page. Like, who would ever go there in a million years if somebody didn't tell you you had to go there? It's appalling. It's appalling. I'm so embarrassed for them that they did this because this is why no one uses reports. It's because this. Because I don't like to blame Blackbot in general, I've created like a fake programmer called Bob. And every time something goes bad in Razor's Edge, I'm like, oh, Bob, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? I know he's like representative of like 1,000 different people, but some stuff just defies logic to the degree that there's no explanation for it. So here, detail. That's where you're going to find all the cool stuff if there's any cool stuff, and that would be right there. Include non-givers on the report. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I'm going to stay on a bit longer in case anybody has any questions. Let me see. Would you review when you would choose to run a dashboard report as opposed to just a report? My default is if I can answer that question through a dashboard, I always go to a dashboard because I like the way that they're easy to run and easy to use, and I can save it on someone's dashboard and all they have to do is click a refresh button and they love them, right? So if I can answer that question through a dashboard, I'm going to dashboard. But the problem is that there's not as many dashboards and they're limited. So sometimes people are asking for information that I cannot get them through a dashboard. And 9 times out of 10, I know that there's a report that will answer that. Reports are the hardest part in Razor's Edge to learn because not only do you have to learn the 155 of them or whatever that are there, but you have to learn how you can adjust them to get them to do what it is that you want. And you adjust it and it does something completely different, like what we just showed you here to include that part of it. So it's almost like somebody has an idea in their head of what it is that they want to be able to see, and sometimes I'll get them to draw it. Because I think of it this way, is that a query is like a person, and the mail, the dashboards, and the reports, those are clothes. They're just what you want to see in the way that you want to be able to see it. Okay, so is a query is like a half naked person in a shower. You're not supposed to be running it because it's not ready yet. It's not ready at all for you to be viewing it. It's not ready until it's clothed in either reports, dashboards, or mail. And that dashboards, reports, and mail is finding the right fit for what you want to be able to see. There's a fit there. I just need to know how you want to see it, what you want to see, and how you want to see it. Who you want to see is the query if we need one. What you want to see and how you want to see it, that's the report or the dashboard. They control how information looks when you're looking at it, not the who you're seeing, but the how it looks when you're viewing it. And that is the main difference between them. Okay, let me see here. Would you recommend using a dashboard to just track constituency code? Example, all legacy plan giving members. And would you enter the type of bequest somewhere other than the comment section? Oh yeah, yeah. To me, plan giving, if you have the prospect module, is the absolute best place for it. If you don't have the prospect module for it, I consider it an appeal that lives on the appeal tab of a constituent record, which means here. Here. This appeal tab, this is what we've asked for. The appeal on a gift is someone giving in response to that appeal it is that we asked for. So when somebody has a bequest and that money has not come in, to me, that is a 15, or that's the only appeal to me that doesn't need a year, because again, we only asked for one. So that's a planned gift. The package is annuity, life insurance, bequest, whatever. And then when the money comes in, so the response could be verbal commitment, like identification research, verbal commitment, pledged, signed pledge form, completed, whatever it is, all the way through to stewardship. And then when the money actually is received, it's connected here. That's what an appeal does. It connects the ask to the money that's been received in a way that a constituency code will never do. Information in the database when you're trying to figure out where to put it, it's always about the best fit. Where can I put it? And it's going to answer the most amount of questions that I have. While it definitely answers a question, who are they, in Bio 2, it doesn't connect it to the money in a way that allows me to run different types of reports, track verbal commitments and where it is that they are in the way that the prospect module, ideally, and if not, then the appeal tab allows me to. So again, it's one place of entry, and I can pull as much as I need to. It connects in the most amount of places as I could possibly have there. Yeah, and then you just have a way more detail. Like again, the prospect module is the best of all of the optional modules in Razor's Edge. So usually, if you're somebody who works a lot in major gifts, it's worth the money that you spend on it. If that's a focus of what it is that you do, I would definitely recommend it. And I don't recommend a lot of optional modules. But if it's not a focus and it's just something that you do, but in a small, then I think appeals is more than you're more than able to track them here. You just need to kind of custom build most of your reports to view it because none of them are naturally built to connect to those areas. However, there is a dashboard. You're welcome. Here that does show you. So I'm just going to do a custom to add an additional one here. There is a dashboard panel called Giving Summary by Constituency, which is a really good one. And this shows you. So I'm just going to hit edit. This fiscal or calendar year. So I'll say this fiscal year. I'll say last fiscal year. I don't have enough in here. And then I'll choose all constituencies. Only money that's been received. Anything else I want to add? No. Okay, so this is just going to show me all of the giving that's come in this year broken down by gift constituency. So the constituency code on the gift itself. Not the constituency code, but the gift constituency. And there you go. Unknown means that there are people in the database who don't have a constituency code. And there are two of them that made gifts. They made big gifts. But because they don't have a constituency code or that constituency code has an end date on it, it's not tracking the gift with a constituency code, which is why it's showing up as unknown. Okay. So again, I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer in case anybody has questions, but I hope that just kind of shows you, because I think it's criminal how hard people are working in queries and then they're never really giving you the right answers, and people say things like, how come when I run this query it gives me one number and I want a different query it gives me a completely different number? And I just kind of keep saying to them, because you're not supposed to be looking at those queries, they're deceptive. You're supposed to be kind of funneling it through a report to give you the information it is that you want to be able to see, or building an export, or if you need to, a custom crystal report. But the answer is usually not a query. A query is the who, if you need to narrow down to that, but not the how it is that you're doing something. And there are a lot of really great reports and dashboards in Razor's Edge. Hopefully this is give you an idea of how it is that you can use them more. And yeah, so I'm going to put my email address here, although in case you guys need it or want to ask me any questions. And I'm going to send the YouTube video of this when it's done converting. I'll send it to everybody in an email, and you can go ahead and view it there. Okay. Any other questions at all? Okay, I'm going to stay on a little bit longer in case anyone has any kind of one-on-one questions it is that they want to ask. If not, thank you so much for joining, and I hope it was educational, and I hope you use your dashboards especially more than you did before as a result. Thanks a lot. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, thanks a lot, guys.